Hi everyone, my name is Anne. Thanks for tuning in today. This is Art on the Creek and we're in my home studio in Parker, Colorado. It is nearing the end of 2024 and maybe many of you, like me, are searching for those last minute gifts for your holiday shopping or stocking stuffers, things like that. Well, at the last minute, I had a company reach out to me and see if we would do an unboxing and a review today. So I do have a sweet little something for us to take a look at. Are you ready? Let's go see what it is and have some fun. Well, this video is probably going to be my last public video of 2024, and I just want to say that I'm so grateful for each and every one of you viewers. I really appreciate you being here throughout the year. Thank you so much. You guys are really the backbone of Art on the Creek, and I couldn't do any of it without you. This review is going to be one that my members will have early access to. So if that's something that interests you and you want to have early access to things, then membership might be something that is fun for you. Look at the link below. I've got all kinds of benefits for members. We do full-time tutorials. We've got Happy Mail where I can send you cool things like art supplies and stickers that I've made for my art, or little prints, things like that, bookmarks. There's an awful lot to do with a membership with Art on the Creek, and if that's something that interests you, be sure and check it out. There's a link below. Let's get into this sweet little product here. Now, it is called the Woomer Hazel Watercolor Paint Set. There are 9 colors in here, and honestly, it looks really darling. The packaging is very simple, and it kind of looks like a toy. And they do put a warning on the back here that it's not intended for children under 3, which is good advice in general when it comes to art supplies that aren't intended for kids. Let's check out the colors that we have here. I'm going to need to get some glasses out to read these to you. The colors that it comes with are Yellow Light, Oriental Orange, Permanent Red, Quinacridone Rose, Lilac Purple, Cobalt Blue, Ultramarine, Phthalo Green, and Payne's Gray. Really good selection of colors. I hope that they perform better than I think they're going to. But let's see. Let's open it up. Let's see. I have an open mind. And all of you new artists out there, I just want to give you, and maybe if you're experiencing you didn't know this, that light fastness ratings on the back of any paint package, unless it's a really reputable brand, I would take that with a grain of salt. These are definitely paints that I'll plan on using in my sketchbook or to travel with, because this is just $12.99. So if something happens to it, it won't bother me if it gets lost or damaged, because it's not that big of an investment. But if I were to bring my $60 Daniel Smith palette with me on a trip and I lose it, now that would disappoint me. So this is cool, clips onto the book. This little container that it slides into, this little plastic pocket, can also hold water. So let's open this up and let's check it out. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is cute. The little swatching stamps are kind of like kitty cats. But you know what? I'm a dog person and I see Shibas, so that's me. Let's see, you've got 4 mixing spaces here when you pull that out. And you have 1 big mixing space here. I like the plastic. This paper does come out. I'm just going to need to pry it out with something because my fingers are not that agile. Here we go. I guarantee you a person with more dexterous hands than mine, if you're not afflicted with arthritis, that is probably not going to give you any trouble at all taking that out. And you can trim it a little bit smaller. So this clips right on here very conveniently, and then voila, you have a handheld palette with a water cup right ready to go. There's no ring on the back to hold it on your finger, but it does fit in your hand. It's a good size. Now, I'm a tall person, so my hands are a little bit larger. But let's see. Let's go ahead and give this a measure just so we can see how big it is when it's all folded out with that cup there. It's about 4 inches, maybe a hair over, by 6 inches. So it's really, like just over 6, sorry. So it's really easy to hold in your hand. The part that you would need to have in your palm, the palettes could extend over your palm. So if you had a very small hand, this would be very easy to transport and carry with you. So since they give you the water cup, let's go ahead and fill it up and let's see what it's like to use it with that water cup attached. All of my life, I've kind of been a clumsy person, so I feel like this is asking a lot of me, but I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to try it for you guys so that you can see what it's like, if you're a clumsy person like me, to have this open vessel of water balancing precariously in your hand when you're trying to paint. I don't have high hopes, but we're going to play with it, and we're going to use it, and we're going to see what it's like. So let me just screw that lid back on my spray bottle here, and we will get to doing some swatching. This paper that they've pre-printed for you to swatch on is watercolor paper. I don't know if it's 100% cotton. I kind of doubt it, but it doesn't really matter for something this small. We're just going to swatch. So let's zoom in. Going right away into the yellow light, I like to not spray paints first with water before I test them if it's a new to me brand, because I want to see how quickly they reactivate. And for reactivation score here, they get a 9 out of 10. I had no issues. I could say 10 out of 10. They re-wet beautifully. The pigment is not all that saturated. So this is pretty typical in hobby paints where you have pigments that they tend to put more binder in these, and that costs less, and that's why they can extend that savings on to their customers. It's not a bad thing. It's just a characteristic of the paint. If someone gave this to me in my stocking, I would absolutely use it and I would have fun with it. But I can tell you with the way that these are acting, and I'm so sorry, my hand is so shaky. I have such trouble with small spaces. So this is going to be kind of funny watching me swatch these out and go out of the lines miserably. But I like the colors. I like the selection. The pigments are not that bold and bright. Which is fine, although these first few are really pretty good. This is the one where I started to notice maybe we're going to have some trouble with some streaking, so we'll see how that works when we get in there. The lilac purple is really pale, which is not bad. Again, it's a characteristic. Let me get some more paint in there just to see if we can activate that a little bit more. And it's just a very light pale pigment, kind of like a cobalt violet. Let's see, now let's get into the cobalt. I was checking to see if there was any cobalt in that purple one, and there isn't. Now we're going to go into the cobalt here, and I hope the swatch is on camera, and of course it's not. I'm sorry about that. I'll adjust it here in a second. There we go. Not perfectly though, am I? Sorry guys. I am going to paint with these later, and you'll get to see in a bigger space how they mix a little bit, and we're going to try an actual painting with them too, just to see how well these work in action. Now down here we've got ultramarine. So I like that when they include both a cobalt and an ultramarine. Ultramarine is kind of a warm blue, and cobalt's more neutral. So when you have an ultramarine, it can make for muddy purple mixes, which is wonderful for shadows and things like that. It makes very earthy green mixes. But if you are looking for ultramarine as your only blue, it's pretty common to have that one, but I would recommend getting a cobalt as well, or a phthalo blue, something so you can have a little bit more leeway in your mixes. The phthalo green's very nice. It looks a lot like an emerald green that I have tested recently, and the brand name escapes me of that one. It's a professional paint. Sorry, I'm not coming up with it, but I do like the Payne's gray. It's nice and neutral, not too blue. Payne's gray is a wonderful mixer because typically they do put a blue in it. This particular one has, oh my gosh, can I read this tiny, tiny print? It's got a PB15 in it, and it looks like a PV, a P-violet. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry guys, I cannot read this at all. I will put this information in the, I'll use a magnifying glass and I'll put it all in the description below. It gives light fastness information and transparency information. I would rely on the transparency information, and I would rely on the pigment information, but again, there's no pigment police out there. It's not like the FDA where they regulate what goes in your food. So, you know, they might say that these are the pigments, but I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. So let's just test these out and let's see how they work. We're going to use Hahnemühle mixed media paper. This is a bamboo mixed media. I like this paper, and I've never had any trouble with it with my professional paints. It acts just like cotton paper with professional watercolors. So that's what I wanted to test. Comparing the orange that I mixed here with the permanent yellow, just the yellow light, and that permanent red, comparing it with their Oriental orange, you do have a lot of leeway there with your mixes, so you can make a nice sunset or something like that. A really good good selection there with those warm colors. Now we'll go into the yellow, and I'm going to mix a little bit of this Quinacridone because this is a good mix to have for portraits. Anytime you're mixing portraits, if you have some kind of a CMY palette, a cyan, magenta, and yellow, and in this case it would be your Cobalt, not because it starts with a C, but because that's a neutral blue. Cobalt and magenta and yellow, those might give you some really good pigment ranges. And you can see that's a nice peachy pink that mixes, so it would be good for lips and cheeks, things like that. Now let's take this Quinacridone rose and let's mix it with some of the ultramarine. This will give you a very clean purple mix, and it's okay, and I'm starting to notice some streaking in the brush. I don't know if you guys can see that, but when I swipe the brush up and down, you can really see the tracks of the brush on this paper. So right away I'm kind of questioning my life choices here and figuring out if this is going to be the best paper to use for this particular paint set. But I'm going to go ahead and go with it because I love this paper and I've never had any problems with it with professional paints, like I say. So I kind of want to compare it with these paints. These paints are really proving to be very much a hobby tier of paint, which is, again, totally fine. It's just their characteristic. I will tell you, though, that I have had hobby paints that perform much better than this. And I think that the grand appeal to this particular set is this palette, because this palette is pretty cool. You can just pop these paints right out of here. You just need to prime out, and then you can fill it with professional paints. And this is a neat little palette. I like the way the plastic feels. I like the way it folds up so nicely. It's a really high quality plastic too. So I think that this is just a winner as far as the palette is concerned. And there I go. I'm a clumsy little elf. So let me clean this up, and I'll be right back. Alrighty, back to our mixes here, and you will note that that little slide-on water cup is empty because I've lost my water cup privileges with this experiment here. I am mixing now some of their lilac purple with some of the phthalo green, because you can, if you mix phthalo green and a nice purple, usually a dioxazine purple or an imperial purple, you can get a beautiful blue, kind of a denim blue. And this one made it to teal, so, you know, right, that's okay. A teal is a really nice color to have, and I was happy with that mix. Let's see here. On this one, I'm mixing some of the yellow with the cobalt. You get a nice pale green. And now let's take that yellow over here and we'll mix it with the ultramarine. I like the way that these colors are laid out in the palette. It's very easy to remember what you've got where. And of course, there's only 9 of them, but sometimes that's all my brain can handle. I really like small palettes, and I like knowing right away where I would put something, and every color here is exactly where I would put it in a palette. Here's where we really notice the streaks, and unfortunately it does happen. I'm going to put a lot of water in here to really kind of just get this to spread. None of these colors really have any movement in them, and that's okay. Again, that will be a characteristic. But you can really see that back and forth of the brush when I'm going over this ultramarine swatch here. I'm trying to see how granulating it is. When you are passing over like that and you just really can't get rid of your brush strokes, chances are the paint has some kind of some characteristic to it. I'm going to call it binder because it could be a filler or something, but it just kind of makes it feel a little bit slimy and uncooperative. You know, the color's going down, it's painting, there's no weird smell. That's good, that's a huge plus. But as far as usability of these paints, it's a little bit frustrating. I'm not enjoying these larger swatches too much. So that's something to consider. You can see the granulation though. It's not bad on the ultramarine, and it's a little bit there on the cobalt. What granulation is, for those of you who don't know, and I'll do a freeze frame right here so you can see it. Granulation really is just like it sounds. Can you see there are some dark spots on those 2 blue swatches? And there's a little bit down here too in these. What those dark spots are the heavier pigments are settling down into the valleys of the paper. And it's really a neat effect. You can get a lot of cool texture just by the qualities of your paints. And these do it a little bit, which I was actually kind of surprised that it did, because so far I'm My 10 out of 10 on this is remaining with the palette. The clumsiness factor is all on me. I would say if you're going to use this with water in it, I would be the first one to forget that I have water in it. I might just limit this to a little carrying case for this palette, but for most of the other population of the world, for just about everybody else, they'd be able to be successful with that water cup. I'm just not one of those people. Let's try doing something a little bit festive here. Let's try doing a poinsettia. Just going to make this really stylized, simplistic, and we're going to go in with some watercolor pencils here and just kind of sketch it out. And I'm going to speed this part up because I really don't want to do a tutorial here. What I want to do is to show you how these paints perform. So I'm just making a real quick sketch here, just kind of really just winging it, just putting in a real droopy poinsettia, kind of a close-up. I really want to see what these reds do, because in my swatching experience, these were the ones that looked like they were going to have the most streaking potential, and sure enough, they are continuing to streak. I will slow it down here a little bit, and you guys can really see where that streaking comes out. But I'm enjoying it because I'm painting, but I'm not enjoying the paints. Does that make sense? I really do want to like this, and I think what I do like about it is the palette itself. And now that I've got this down to real time here, you can really see how these paints are kind of streaky. They almost act like, you know when you're painting with acrylics and there's like little ridges that go on the outside of your brush if you have too much paint on your brush, and then you can see the brush strokes on the swipe part. That's kind of how these act. They're just a little bit weird, and you can really see that I'm having a hard time getting these paintbrush strokes to blend in. This is not normal for watercolor. Watercolor likes to spread and move, and it likes to be married to the paper. And this paper, like I said, is excellent, and I have never had any other issues with this paper. So consequently, unfortunately, this was a little bit frustrating to paint, but you know, it was fun because I was painting, like I said, but the paints just weren't performing very well at all, and I wasn't happy with the final results. So we're going to go ahead and add some mixed media to this and really just pep it up a little bit. I've got some gold acrylic markers here, and I'm going to go in with a darker green and just kind of outline it a little bit. And then I'm going to go and get a white color pencil, and we're going to outline the outside and put some highlights in the center as well. Now, for those of you who have watched my channel, you know that I love mixed media artwork. I love playing around with colored pencil or pastels or acrylic markers over watercolor. I really enjoy doing those things. But this one, you guys, I have to say it was a little bit of a struggle. So let's take a closer look at this now. I'm going to go ahead and show you this really close up. Even just looking at it now, you can really see it looks sloppy, and that's what I didn't like about these paints. You can really see the brush marks, all of those streaks there, and as I'm touching it, you know, it feels chalky. Yep, there's a little bit of pink on my finger there. Let me show you something here with a dry paper towel. I'm going to pick a paper towel up here. Now this is a dry, clean paper towel. Let's just rub it on the green. And sure enough, see, it picks up that green. We'll find a clean space on the paper towel and we'll rub it on the red. And sure enough, it picks it up. So these are definitely paints that you would want to use in your sketchbook when you don't plan on giving it to anyone, you're just practicing. I would recommend something very, very small on a very small scale if you're going to use the paints that these come with, because these perform much better in very, very small spaces. Now, that said, this palette could be really cool if you could pop these paints out. And I will fiddle with this later because I'm having a little bit of trouble doing it right now. And again, this is my hands not being very strong. So if this is something you're interested in and you're feeling a little bit adventurous, you want to try it yourself, I will have those affiliate links down below. Again, this is the Woomer Hazel palette of 9 watercolors. I really love the palette, but you guys, as far as the paints go, I was so frustrated that it just wasn't even fun to act as a paint. So I got to give the paints a thumbs down. But for the palette, 100%, I love it. I would pay $12.99 for an empty palette of this caliber. So take this review for what it is worth and shop if you want. If you don't want, that's fine too. Bottom line, I hope everyone is really ready for a fun, lovely new year, and we will see you guys in 2025. Take care, everybody. Bye now.